This episode is presented by Shaw. This month sees Europe's elite start to battle it out to become the best of the best. There's so much pressure at this level and you can't be distracted for one single second. It's so important that you keep fresh and focused, which is why it's good to have Shaw's non-stop protection range of antiperspirants to hand. 72-hour non-stop sweat and odour protection that'll keep you fresh and dry on and off the pitch. Shop now at Boots. Shaw, it won't let you down.
Gael, welcome to the Fozcast. It's fair to say, mate, when footballers finish their career, a lot of them don't know what to do next. A lot of them don't have a passion. They get a little bit lost. But for you, it seems very clear you know what your next step is, right?
I think, when you've been in an industry for 20 years, it's very difficult to see yourself elsewhere. And I've been lucky because I think I love the game so much to meet and to have met Pep. My last year at City, I never really considered being a coach, even though I always had a good relationship with young players and I always thought maybe I could do something. But seeing him working, and you put aside the trophies that he won because obviously, that's crazy. But I said to myself, if being a coach is this, then I want to try it.
Is it different, what he does and the way he does it? Is it different to anything else you've ever seen?
Yeah, I'm always been... I've never seen myself as a talented player. You need talent, but I've never seen myself as a talented player, but someone who work hard. And I made a name for myself because of certain things that I've been doing for so long. So details always been into my career. And when I saw him, and just to give an example, for 20 years I've heard manager saying, and I'm not saying that they were just talking, for the sake of it, but the story of the weight, if a player is overweighted, he's not going to play, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that so many times. And really, when you have your best player overweighted, you need him, you play him. He arrived and the first meeting he had with us at City lasted 45 minutes. And he talked about everything except football. And he told us one of the first rule, a player who is 2 kilos overweighted, and this is not you giving us your weight, it's us after pre-season, he's not going to train. And I was like, okay, I'm listening now, because I always been onto food and nutrition and how you sleep and how you live life, because it's a job. And then what I see is that the first 3 players, Yaya Toure, Samir Nasri and Kevin De Bruyne, all of them overweighted. What you going to do now? And they just ran. So Kevin was the first one to lose the 2 kilos, so he joined the team fairly quickly. Yaya took a bit longer, and Samir was the second one. So I thought to myself, this is, sometime the words, that you use means a lot, but the acts means more. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to look into, obviously, what is going to bring us as player, but I'm going to see how we behave, with the staff, with men managing. And that was unbelievable. Everything about details.
Especially when if it was the goalkeepers or, I don't know, the centre-backs, but when it's Yaya Toure,
that's what I mean,
Kevin De Bruyne.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
No, because it's easy. It could have been easy. If it's Gaël Clichy overweighted, okay, you put him on the side. He's not a game winner. He's not going to change your game. But that was 3 players that, we know them. And I was like, this is the kind of coach I want to be. Again, put aside the trophies, because this is down to, the quality you have and the team you have and a bit of destiny, because I do believe in destiny. But if managing and being a coach is this, I want to try it.
So do you think then that him setting his stall out straight away and saying, no, if you don't fit into what I want, you're not going to play. Did everybody else see these 3 players having to do the extra work to lose the weight and then say, oh, well, he's not joking, he means it?
Well, Yaya was the first one, because Yaya for more than, 10 years at City was the player. You can name games, big games player. When you need a goal, he was the player, sorry. So obviously you hear those words in the first meeting and you think, okay, without putting the guy on the weight machine, we know he's overweighted because he's always been like that. So we want to see what you're going to do now. And then straight away, he's backing up his word. And you think, yeah, this guy is... So he's not only good because he wins. He's good because he's consistent.
True to his word.
Yeah, exactly,
So was that a step on from Arsène Wenger? Because obviously Arsène, it's very kind of well known that he came into the country in the 90s and almost revolutionised football and diet. So was Pep almost an evolution from Arsène?
I think so. It's very much, it's different generation, so you can't really compare. but there is thing that take them and put them in the same box. Arsène changed the game, I think, when he arrived with a vision that nobody had in England. But also Arsène had a club with history. I'm not saying City didn't have history, but really the last 10, 12 years, he gave City a new glow up, if you want. Now it's one of the clubs that everybody wants to join, not just down to him, because the work done before him was evident, but it's always easier to come in a club that needs everything to be written to start something, when Arsène arrived and the club was already Arsenal. So but Arsène had players that won already. So when you're a player who won things, what it costs to win. You have to be serious. You have to be, all details are important. So it's very similar, but at the same time, very much different.
With regards to your own coaching journey then, okay, so say you get a managerial job tomorrow. What is the most important part of being a manager for you? Because by the sounds of it, it's not just making sure you've got your team in that right formation and the players are in the right places, but it sounds like the other side of it is just as important.
But that's why I think football is fantastic, because you will have someone like Pep who is like, a genius for some people because he's thinking and sometimes overthinking. And you have someone like Ancelotti who's telling you the main thing when you coach is to make the player feel good, and then they will perform. Obviously, this will work if you are in a top club where the players are actually probably better than you, and you can ask Kevin De Bruyne to play right back. He will not perform at his best because he's not a right back, but he will do the job. You know what I mean? Like yesterday with Liverpool, a guy who's playing at the right back position and he's man of the match. So can you do this if you play in League One? I'm not sure. So that's a different discussion. But my point is that I do feel that if you cannot put a session together for the players, you can have your assistant doing the job for you. Yeah. But to manage players, that's a quality that you need to work to have. Because I don't think anyone is born with it. I think it's something that you need to work on, and I think that's the main important thing, And if I go back to Pep, I remember after a session we were talking, so we did a drill, and he told me, and we have like 40 seconds water break between two practice. So he told me and he said, when you receive the ball, I'd like you to receive it like this. I hope it feels natural, because when you receive it like this, you can play there, and you have free option, for example. And then we went over the 40 seconds, and the next practice was a practice with an exercise with the fitness coach. So now the team is gone to the other side of the pitch, waiting for me and Pep to finish. And after maybe a minute, the fitness coach is shouting to Pep. He said, "Oh, Pep, you speak later. It's my time now." So obviously we all know Pep is the big boss, and if you want to pin him, and he said, "Okay, talk. When I'm done, you will start your exercise." He looked at me and said, "Okay, Gael, go, because he's going to destroy me if I take too much of his time." So I'm running back. I'm running to join the team, and I'm thinking, I love that. We know he's the boss, but he's putting everybody.
Respect.
Yeah. So basically, you, my assistant, if the team is messing around with you, the effects or the impact that's going to have on you as a player, not respecting him, is the same that if you don't respect me.
You've seen it the same as me, where if there's a coach or an assistant or a physio and they try and get involved, the manager can shut them down in an instant. They shut them down. But we see that as players. And as soon as we see that, we think, oof, there's a power struggle there.
That's it.
I can take advantage of that power struggle as well, can't I?
That's it. But another example is Nasri went on loan to Seville. And we had a session when we did small-sided games, and he had a small argument with Arteta. Like he didn't get physical, but they really get close. They got close. Like the week later, he was on loan. So those things, when I was looking, I was like, wow. It's not that I've never seen anything like it, but I think this is how you manage. Yeah. And when I speak to people, different managers, different head coach, you have to manage the team behind the team, and this is how you manage your staff, and you have to give them responsibility, you have to give them love, you have to protect them, because like you said, if you let this go and the team feels that, the dressing room is ruthless, so if they feel the assistant is not as powerful, it's game over. So I love that, and that's the reason.
When you were in your 30s, you said there was a point where you realised that you wanted to be a coach or you wanted to be a manager and you wanted to stay in football. From that point onwards, were you always looking around? Were you always trying to take in as much as you possibly can from any player that you might play with, a player you against, managers you play against, managers you played with?
I always been like this. When I first arrived at Arsenal 17, from 0 to 17, I was probably the best player in my generation everywhere I went. Then I arrived at Arsenal, and very quickly after like 1 hour of session, I realized that I'm not the first. I'm not the 10th player in terms of quality. So I will need to work, to exist. And then my aim was to take each of the players, the quality and the weaknesses. And obviously I was never going to be as good as Patrick Vieira. But if he's behaving this way, there's no way I can do less than what he's doing. I can match that. The effort and the commitment, I will match that. So I always had that in me. So since I work with Pep, I was like, okay, now I'm going to look closely the relationship between player and manager, which is something that we don't do as player, or rarely, because you're so focused on the job at the weekend that you don't look around. And then my decision to go to Turkey after City was down for this. I wanted to be in a place where they would give me space to, share with the staffing, the staff, the coach, starting to put my ideas in place. And then when I left Turkey to go to Switzerland, it was the same process. The process was, okay, I want to try it. And if I want to try it, I want to still enjoy playing football, but I need to build up something that in, 5, 6, 7 years when I stop playing, I'm ish ready. It's not like like you said at the beginning, it's not like, okay, I stop at 38, then I have to start the whole process. I wanted to done at 38, 39, 40, and I already have a book of my ideas.
You're good to go.
So from that moment on, when I met Pep, I was like, yeah, okay, let's go.
Welcome to a special part of today's episode called It Won't Let You Down, brought to you by Shaw. We're well into the season now, and there's been plenty of standout keeper performances. So let's look at who's doing bits between the sticks. Okay, it's time to hand out a few early season goalkeeper awards. The first award is to an individual performance from all the games I've seen so far. And that award has to go to Spurs goalkeeper Vicario in the 1-0 defeat to Bournemouth. Now, nobody saw this one coming. Spurs absolutely flying, 2 wins from 2, but the Cherries turned up to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and absolutely battered them. Vicario was on fire, making 5 or 6 top-class saves, one in particular down to his left. Oh, world class. He stopped it from being a big mauling for Spurs. The second award is for the best new keeper in the league, and that award has to go to Sunderland stopper Robin Ruffs. Sunderland have got 6 points from the first 3 games, and that's massively thanks to an impressive Ruffs. A penalty save against Brentford and a clean sheet on the opening day against West Ham are making the £10 million signing look like a bargain. And the final award is for the goalkeeper of this season so far. There have been so many impressive goalkeeper performances. Petrovic at Bournemouth, Dubravka at Burnley, and Dean Henderson at Crystal Palace have all had impressive starts. But I've got to give it to Everton and England's number 1, Jordan Pickford. Everton have 2 wins from 3 and sit 5th. However, Jordan just seems to be getting better with age. A real match winner and a calming influence at the back for the Toffees. We're all looking to perform at our best, so whatever you've got going on in life, Shaw's non-stop protection antiperspirants have 72-hour non-stop sweat and odour protection, so you can stay fresh and dry throughout any adventure. Shop now at Boots.
You've mentioned Pep a lot. Is Pep the one? Is Pep the guy who, if you had to pick out of everybody, is he the one that's probably taught you or made the biggest impression on you?
Pep is not the one, because the one is Arsène and will always be Arsène. He's the one that gave me my chance, but also the one could be, Mancini, because he's the only real one who took me from a big club, spend money to have me and to change the story of City. So each of them, accordingly to the time we were, is the one. But Pep in 10 months, basically, I'd won 3 Premier League, and I know many players won more Premier League than me. I played many games in the Premier League, over 50, 60 game in the Champions League, final of Champions League with Arsenal. And yet in 10 months, he taught me how to see the game again. And that was a bit of a shock, because, when you get to a certain age and you've been in an industry for so long, you're certain of certain things. So I was certain of how to play football. And obviously you need to be attracted to this type of football. If you like long balls, then you're not going to be, attracted by Pep's game. But this is me. I like to play out from the back. I like to have possession. So when I saw him after 10 months, I was like, whoa. So now when I watch a game, I'm thinking, it's hard to distance myself from his ideas, because this is what I would like to do.
Yourself, yeah.
Not just his, because I have my own, but it's so simple. And yet it shows you that the simplest thing in football are the hardest. And that's why, you know, the big players can execute what he asks, and the rest maybe are struggling. You need to see faster, you need to see ahead, you need to be able to execute.
It's incredible. So how old were you when you joined, when you and Pep met?
I was 32.
Right, that's really interesting, because we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with Eric Dyer, right? And Eric's joined Monaco, 31 years old, and he went to Bayern Munich. So he was, 30 years old?
29,
30 when he went to Bayern Munich. And he said to us, I'm not sure whether he said it off camera or on camera, but he said, I wish I met Vincent Kompany 10 years younger. He said, at 31 years old, or 30 years old, he has made me a better footballer, didn't he, Ben?
He said he's made him a better footballer. He wished if he had 10 years prior, he would have been an even better footballer. And he said what he's instilled into Eric now is the will to want to be a coach. So Eric now, when he finishes football, wants to be a coach, wants to be a manager, and he's the same story as you. He's already putting in the practice now, putting in the hours, coaching sessions, learning how to get his badges, so that when that time does come, whenever he chooses, he's good to go.
It's funny, because I have another idea with this and Pep. I feel that this 1 year of working under Pep is not enough, because I like Eric, I would have loved to have met him before. He could have made me a better player. This we will never know. But at the same time, I'm glad he didn't go over a year, because then it triggered my curiosity. But at the same time, it wasn't enough for me to kind of just copy paste and just go and try to do a Pep.
Gave you enough.
It gave me enough to be curious and
you can make the rest.
But now I need to still dig in, and I do feel that some players, and I will give you names, but you remember Bojan, who played for Stoke, or Afelai, the Dutch guy. I think when you are with those coaches at a very young age, they kind of teach you how to play a certain way.
Yeah.
But then what is next when you don't perform for this guy? Can you play elsewhere? And I do feel, I remember when I was still at City, I was watching the academy players, and they were between 13 and 15, and that was unbelievable. They were doing practice that we were doing, as pro. And I was thinking about myself when I was this age. It wasn't none of this, possession, and then after 6 passes, you long ball and you change square and stuff. And I said, that's amazing. And the guy told me at the time, he said, it's great to look at and it's fantastic. He said, but there's only one side that is not great, is that we are now raising kids to play this way. And we will have, over the period of the next 10 years, 2 free players that will cost over 60 million. Sancho, Foden. So that was that at the time. Those players were training. He said, but the rest of them, they've been raised to play like that since they were 10 years old. Can they make them a name for themselves if they can't play for City? Can they go to Charlton, Sheffield, Burnley?
You've got those 2 big ones, but then you've got your Delaps and all of the rest of the school.
That's it. But then you make it. Basically, they were saying we teaching them how to play elite football.
Yeah.
But elite football is only a 5% of football. What about the rest?
There's
so
a
he
lot
said,
of players that might have to drop down to the Championship,
and it's
League
difficult.
1, League 2.
And
that's not the predominant way of playing football in those leagues. It's physical. It's brutal football.
So then you realize that, yes, it's a way to play. And I was in touch with, Paris, and, I speak a lot with Johan Cabay, who is now the academy director in Paris. And I think, it's important to keep this. Okay, now it's a different subject because we're talking about, academy football. But it's important to, even if you desire to play this way, to bring the best player in the first team, you need to kind of make sure that you give enough for the rest, because out of the 20 players, not all of them are going to succeed. So, it's you need to find that balance of, we want to be like that, but at the same time, you don't want to compromise the rest of them, because when they leave, if you used to play from the back on a good surface, and then we ask you to play for a different team and playing long boards and in your face, then you can't survive, So that was funny. And as a coach, you kind of, it depends where you land. If you land in a club like City, obviously you will have players like that. But if you land your first job like me, probably 2nd division or 3rd division, I don't know if I'm not lucky, or if I'm lucky, or whatever we want to see it. There's more chances for me to start in a place where I will not have those players.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that I know how to coach.
How do you do that? Do you know what I mean? Because, especially in nowadays football, where you don't get any time, really, do you? If you get off to a bad start and you're losing 3-4 games, Erik ten Hag got sacked today after 2 games of the new season. That's what we're talking about nowadays. So if you go into a new club and you've learned a certain way and then you only get 5 or 6 games, you've got to hit the ground running, haven't you?
So for example, I get back to when I left City. So when I left City, I could have still signed for a club in the Premier League, bottom half of the table, not disrespecting anyone, but I just felt that I didn't want that. So I went to Turkey in a team, a new club where story was to be written, and in a place where, like I said, I would have space to kind of enjoy my football because I was still competitive, but also grow as a coach that I wanted to try. So I went there, put my ideas in place. We became champion, which was great. Not down to me, but at one point, team changed the way of playing because I was pushing towards something close to what City were giving at the time. So that was hard. The move from City to Turkey was hard because then you realize you're not part of the elite anymore. Became champion, history in the country because
incredible achievement.
Yeah, it was
incredible achievement.
I think we were the 5th team to win over the last 60 years. In the league. So that's okay. It's not Champions League, but on a personal note, that was unbelievable. And then I had the decision either to extend my contract and play Champions League football again, or leave. My family didn't want to stay in Turkey, so it was another moment where I felt okay. I'm leaving this football and I'm going down a level again. So I decided to go to Switzerland. And why I'm bringing this up is because this time, those 3 years in Geneva, show me that with time, care, love for the players, you can have results with lesser good players. So obviously you're not going to win the Champions League with Servette because the players are not equipped to be at that level. But within the league, you can have results. So we qualified for Champions League qualifiers, which was amazing for the team. Some players signed for bigger team in Switzerland. And it just shows you that, if you have time, which, like you said, you don't have much time when you're a coach.
Not in England.
Everywhere. It's the same in France. It's the same in Italy. It's the same in Germany. You don't have time, because when you talk about elite, you talk about, a place where it's oriented results. But if you have time, you care and you have love and you good at your job, you will improve players. And if you improve players individually, the team will improve also. And I'm certain of that. So that time in Geneva, I wouldn't say it was more important than the rest of my career, but it just made me realize that I think I'm equipped to go to a third division or second division.
So is that what's next now? Is it kind of getting out there and finding the right job?
Yeah, I spoke with Roberto Martinez, and he told me if I have one advice for you, because you seem passionate, you seem to have your ideas, don't choose the logo, choose the owner. He said it's very hard.
Good.
He said it's very hard because you don't know the man, but you have to choose the speech or the word that will guarantee you being here for 2 years. So that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, and I think that's the reality. If you know that you will have time, you don't get success before 2 years, really, usually. So if you have time, you would improve players if you want to work.
How does it work with getting a job? Are people aware? Are clubs aware that you're ready for that step up now?
So I declined 2 offers this summer because I felt that it's not about the values, but it's just about the moment. And for example, I'm about hopefully to get my pro license in December. And for example, one of the club, because I don't have the pro license, I would have had to pick an assistant, not for who he is and what he's going to bring me, but more because he has the pro license and his place on the bench will validate my place on the bench. And I think when you go into a club, you're only strong when you start because the club wants you. And then after the games and the result, and you're not strong anymore if you don't get results. So I said to myself, okay, I don't want to start like that. I want to start with having a staff that see my vision, share my vision, that would challenge me, and not because of them that I can be on the bench. So I think clubs are aware. And for example, when I did my brochure and my paper to give to chairman and clubs, which I did when I done with them, I sent them to a few chairmen that I know just to see what they feel about it. Yeah. And then I have some images of my time at Servette, and they ask me, but why are you choosing to show us, the game for Servette, with Servette. And I said, well, I could have picked images or clips of Barcelona and City, but then you would have been in front of me saying, obviously everybody wants to be and want to play like that, but can you really do like this? And now with the clip of Servette, not just me, but I really push hard. I was still playing at the time, so the last year I was actually training the first 20 minutes as a player, and I was taking the last 40 minutes to set the training for the team that we were going to play at the weekend. So I keep on telling them, I wasn't the coach, but I'm certain and I can put this on the table that these ideas were mine. And that's why I went to Servette. I went there to get myself ready for the moment. So the last thing I tell them is like, you went through this. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, your first child, were you ready to be a father? For 9 months when your wife is pregnant, you're getting ready and you feel you're ready. But were you ready? No, you were not ready. You were as ready as possible, but you only be a father when the baby is there. Yeah. So I said, I think it's the same process. And there's a lot of similarity between being a dad or being a parent and being a coach on the first job, because you've been working, you're certain of certain things that you know how to do, but you will only be good and judged when you have your first team.
How important is it? Do you know what? I would hate to be a manager, Gael. Honestly, I'd hate it. It would... I think being a goalkeeper, I'm so used to being part of a team, but also my own little unit as well. So I don't really want to rely on other people too much. And there's quite a lot of managerial things going on at the minute. And a lot of players seem to be able to have so much power now where they can do this and do that, where I feel like sometimes I just want the manager to come out after the game and go, he let me down. I've told him what to do and it wasn't that, and he let me down. But then you're making a rod for your own back with that player, because then you might lose him confidence-wise for the next game. It's all a balancing act.
I don't want to say that the clubs are not doing it right, but if you look at the top clubs, and we have the example last year with Paris, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they had a team full of stars. Yeah. The previous coach didn't have full power and decision, or that's how it seems. Yeah. Enrique came and last year decided to, take a few out and decide to go with youth and young players and player with maybe less quality. That's what they say. And they went on and did the treble. City, different project, but it's exactly the same with Pep. He arrived, decades ago, and he decided on the first year to take off, the best player of the team, because he wanted to show that, no matter who you are, I'm going to be the one deciding. Yeah. And you just realize Madrid is the same. You just realize that when the owner decide to put the chairman decide to put sport director, the coach, and the coach the players, if everyone is playing his own position, then there's no problem. We've seen it with a club this year in the Premier League where the owner wants to mingle with the sport director with the coach, and then it's a mess.
Pointing fingers everywhere, isn't it? That's what happens.
Not my fault.
I think it's pointing fingers, but it's also everybody wanted to be where you get the light in a way, Yeah. So and it's not just in football; it's everywhere. But I think being a leader, and I've seen it with Thierry last year with the under-21, because of who he is, he couldn't care less about what people were going to think. But then after the season, he told me, now put yourself in my shoes and see what I did, because we were always sharing, and it was unbelievable for that. I learned so much. And basically he told me, all the session, I want you to create them. I don't want you to go and copy something. I want you to create them for what we need as a team. The fitness coach was free to prepare the team for the Olympics how he wanted. The assistant coach was there to talk to the players, and the goalkeeper coach was just free to do whatever he wanted. The only thing that Thierry wanted from us is quality, and obviously you can only know if you did the right thing at the end of a tournament. So we won the medal, and he told me, now put you in my shoes and try to see if it's easy to let everybody do the job for you, because in the end, if you don't do the job, if you have result, people are going to think maybe Ben is the one who is doing everything. So then if I'm the boss, people are going to say, but why do we need Gael if Ben is doing everything? You know what I mean? And he told me just this is not easy. And that's why you see coaches, like you said before, will shut down one staff member because, hey, I'm the boss. And I will not name names because I've lived that. And in the end, I think the toughest managers and the most successful ones are the ones that can delegate the most.
Yeah.
So it's a funny, it's a very thin line, because you want to delegate as much as possible for everybody to grow, but at the same time you need to act a certain way for the team, like you said, the dressing room, to kind of see, are you the boss or are you not the boss,
That's so tough though, because
And it's
you've got to make sure you got the right team, and I
Yeah.
think that's an age thing as well. If you're happy to delegate, you've got to let go of your ego a little bit as well. You've got to trust that person can do their job. But if you've got the right people in place, you've got a chance.
That's it. But that's why the first decision is, am I going to this club knowing that I cannot bring my people? And when I say my people, it's not my brother, my cousin, or my uncle. It's people that share the same ideas, the same
Football
values.
people.
It's more about values and ideas than really being friends. Because if I see this red and you see this white, let's have an argument and try to convince me that it's white. If you manage to convince me it's white, then I've improved. If I can convince you it's red, then you're improving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need to have the right people, and you need to have guys that are here. I remember when I received the text from Cherry saying, we need to talk because I want you to come and to be my assistant. And I said, Cherry, I'm going to be the best assistant that you can dream of. I can guarantee you that. Would I be good enough? I don't know, but I'm gonna have your everything that you need. I'm gonna give you, but I'm here to improve, and I just don't want to be an assistant. I need to improve myself. I need to evolve after a year, 2 years of working. I need to be able that I'm not the same guy that I was 2 years ago. And then he said, okay, let's go, because that's the answer I want. I don't want someone that is just there because
pick up their wages.
That's it.
No.
I want someone that can challenge me as much as I will
Yeah.
challenge. So we had some tough argument. But the learning curve on how to manage was just unbelievable for me.
Couple questions. Would you have always predicted that Vinny Company would be a manager?
Yeah, I would, because I think Vinny is, in a way, is like me. He's a very hard working guy. I don't know if he will class himself as a talented player, but I think he was more of a crazy guy into how to evolve, progress,
Reliable.
Leader.
leader,
Reliable
relentless,
as heck.
and I think even more so in today's life, if you are consistent in the efforts, no matter what you want to do, cleaning shoes, cooking, picking papers and putting in the garbage, if you're willing to pick up the trash from the streets, eventually you will get something, because London Council will want the city to be clean, and if you can bring this on the table, it's not glamorous, but if you're the only one who wants to clean the street, you get great deals.
I'm going to drop some wisdom on you, lads. A word that I think one of the most important assets you could possibly have is authentic, right? So if Vinny Company, like you say there, wasn't necessarily the classiest of footballer, but he knew he wasn't either. So he was authentically Vinny Company. He was what he was, and he wasn't trying to be anybody else, and that was why he was so good at what he did.
I think Vinny, if you look at him when Pep arrived, he's not the Busquets or the Piqué kind of centre half. He's strong, he's aggressive. He can cover the ground. In the back, in the space, he's very aggressive with the defender, and he never clashed that. He knew that maybe he had to be more composed on the ball, let's say, and he wasn't against trying. And because you're not against trying, you will improve. And when you had that quality plus the fact that you have your own qualities, you make yourself, a better player. And I think this is what you need. You need to be flexible enough to understand that you're not the best and work towards evolving and accepting that you have something that the one next to you don't have. And I think Vinny was always going to be a tough manager and a great manager, because that's why he is. He's a leader.
I think it did always help that he had Yaya Toure or David Silva in front of him. That probably helped him out a little bit as well. A second question, when you sign for Arsenal and you've got Ashley Cole in front of you, is that the best thing that could have happened to you?
Yes, not only Ashley, but I think the whole team. I arrive in the dressing room, and I think this is a very good question, because I think it's a bit like a basket of apples. If you put a dead apple, it would just contaminate the rest of the basket. And I arrived in that dressing room. I could have arrived in a dressing room where there were, dressing room full of party animals, and I would have learned how to be a professional with party animals. So then I would have became a party animal. I was there with players who won the Premier League already, some who won the World Cup, the Euro Championship, And basically, I was so lucky, and it's like a kid who is born in a place where the mom speaks Spanish, the dad speaks English, and for whatever reason, they live in France. After 10 years, you speak 3 languages, but it's not down to your hard work. It's just your environment, right?
Yeah.
And then I arrived in that place where basically you'll be so silly and in a way stupid not to progress, because you look at Vieira, you look at Henry, you look at Martin Keown, you look at Paolo. For me, you look at Ashley Cole, and just by watching, you become a better player, a better man. So sometimes I said to my kids, I was lucky, and the work I did was easy because I was in that place. Now what's very important is when you're in a place where you are challenged every day, how can you become a better player and make the right decision? For me, it was very easy. I just had to look at Ashley, how he plays, how he behave every day, how he conduct himself, and obviously your quality. If you play for Arsenal, you have quality. But that was very easy for me to watch Ash and just, okay, this maybe I can do different. I can try to do different. I've been blessed with the first dressing room as a pro. I entered, and that was the Invincible.
And that was your first season at Arsenal, Invincible season, playing with those guys. And we are going to ask you, and you might not answer, you may or may not answer, I don't know, which was the better squad in that City and Arsenal one. But when you look at some of the players in that Arsenal squad, it's frightening, isn't it? And you've still got the Martin Keowns, the Sol Campbells, Carlo Torres, Ashley, yourself, Gio Van Bronckhorst, it's Thierry, Cesc.
All right, but you could do the same with that Man City team. If you go through the pomp Man City team, the Man City team where they're just starting to win stuff, and it's David Silva, and it's Aguero in there, and you got Yaya in there, and Vinny Company in there.
Well, let me ask you then first, Ben.
I think it's a different game of football. I think the two
You
teams.
stole my answer, man.
Come on.
It's not my podcast.
I don't want
it's
that
Gael's.
answer for either of you.
Let's ask Gael, because he saw it. I think he's probably the best person to ask.
Well, put it this way. No other team achieved the Invincible, route.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the end of the conversation. Why? Because at that time we had, players that, for me as a French lad, I'm not saying for everybody, but as a French lad, who changed English football.
Yeah.
Being in France, that generation of player, was on TV every day. You have a manager that changed, not him only, but changed English football. No one can argue that Thierry is the player of the last 30 years, accordingly to what you like in a player.
No arguments here.
Okay. No. And then you have people like, Sol Campbell. Everything that they did in their career, the move from Tottenham to Arsenal was a big thing. Ashley Cole, Arsenal to Chelsea, big thing. Out of the start 11, you had like 8 or 9 players that were part of the 3 best player in Europe for like a period of 6-7 years, like no joke, So I think that team was special, very special. Men's, if I can say. City, I think I don't think the club expect us to win the title that year.
Yeah.
I think they're programmed to win it a few years later, but they never expected us to win it. And I think we won it because the spirit within the group at City, those first 2 years was just unbelievable. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. We had a strong core of English players. And that was when it was party time, we were partying like crazy. When it was, every time we had an occasion to create the moment, a girl's, a wife's birthday, we were all getting together. Nice. When it was a child's birthday, we were getting together. When it was a player's birthday, when it was Christmas parties. I never experienced this before, if I'm being honest. And I think that's why we went on and became champion. So it's hard to kind of, compare the two. But like you said, I think it was 2 different time, because it was nearly 10, 12 years apart. Fantastic team, fantastic dressing room. But yeah, Arsenal is, those players just changed for me, the era.
It's amazing hearing the stories, and we're talking about the best of the very best here. And yet the 2 lessons I've learned from this is do things properly, 45 minutes with Pep, do things right, and camaraderie, the togetherness of that City team.
It's not rocket science, is it?
You get those 2,
it's not rocket
right?
science.
And I'm sure if you then put the right football philosophies in place, you're going to be close, aren't you?
The only thing that is that, all the managers, the top managers, have a few things in common. ruthless, the love for the game, and they die with their values, you know. And this is very simple, like you said. If you have a good dressing room, not all of the guys, because you cannot be friends with everybody, but if you have a good group of players, honest and who are willing to work. 2 years ago, I went to visit Madrid for a few days, and I spoke with Ancelotti, and he told me Madrid is a very special place. You know, I've coached and I've been in top clubs. Madrid is a special place. And he told me basically Madrid, as soon as a crisis start to creep in, the sentence is the club decided. And as soon as you hear the club has decided, there's no more argument. And he said, in a way, he said, don't get me wrong, you have some top club in the world, but he said, if you play for United, if you're a Mancunian, if you're from Manchester, you will want to play for Manchester. But a Spanish guy, an Italian guy, when he's young, don't necessarily dream to play for United. Same for Barcelona, he said, but Madrid, wherever you are in the world, when you're young, you dream to play for Madrid. So it's not like that, but he said in general, when you look, everybody dream about that shirt. So he said, when you play for Madrid, you accept Madrid rules, and the rules in Madrid is just to win. So he said it's hard to manage, but at the same time it's very easy to manage because you have a pyramid. The objective is to win the Champions League, and if you like cars, the way to buy more cars is to win games. If you like money, the way to have more money is to win games. If you like house and you like to buy house, to have more houses, you need to win games. Yeah. And the more games you win, the closer you get to Champions League. So for him, it was like a way to tell me, it's very simple. Depending on where you are, the club you are, objective need to be set from the beginning. And from that moment on, you can work accordingly to what you have available. So that was fascinating because he is not too much into creating a methodology, changing a way of a team play. He really adapts himself with the team and the player he has. And for me, it's unbelievable because depending on where you are, you can decide what kind of coach you can be.
This is what I mean. Like football, I don't think there's one size fits all for being a manager nowadays. You mentioned Luis Enrique there a minute ago, and this is what sort of boggles my head about being a manager. Okay, so Ancelotti, for example, I get the impression that he likes to get behind his players, make them trust him. He trusts them and goes, right, you are the best players in the world. Go out there and beat the team that's on the pitch in front of you. Luis Enrique, though, it's like he's developed another new way to win football matches, to win the biggest football matches as well. The way that he won the Champions League last season, the way that he dominated the French league, that style of football where it's the whole team together, pressing from the front, everybody using triggers to just go, boom, my turn. And the work rate of some of them young lads I was watching, I went to the away game, Champions League, Arsenal, and the reason why they won the game is because they outworked Arsenal. It was as simple as that. And I'm thinking, maybe that's the way to win games then, is just by outworking everybody.
I think the projects of City with Pep and Paris with Luis Enrique is suited for them. We have to think that, you know, they came from Barcelona's academy. Barcelona's academy is, you know, in Spain, they like to play a certain way, and it's the whole federation that plays like this, you know. Last year, they won the Euro, they won the Olympics, they won a tournament with women, they won the under-19, they won the under-17. Wow. So there's no secret, and I'm pretty sure if there were a tournament for under-10, you know, they would have won it too. So it just shows you that, you know, what you see from them is within them. You know, it's not something that they're trying to copy. You know, it's not like me trying because I love it and I've been part of and lucky to work with him, that I'm going to try to use that as well as my ideas. They lived it. You know, they were born there. They grew up as young players. They became pro. They became coaches this way. They don't know how to do differently. But it's not because they're doing it this way that there's not another way to coach. And this is why it's unbelievable because, of course, the quality you have in the dressing room will help. But I think, accordingly to what we've seen with Ancelotti, he's done it everywhere, you know, with different teams and stuff. So it clearly worked. Yeah. Mourinho, same, you know, England, you know, anywhere. So it's just, again, like you said earlier, It's more being authentic and who you are. Am I going to be a top coach? As soon as I realize that I'm not a top coach, then maybe I need to stop trying to be a top coach and trying to see what are my qualities. Maybe it's with the academy, maybe it's to be a great assistant, maybe it's to be a goalkeeper coach, whatever. But you have to stick with what you know and be authentic. And I think this guy, that's what they do. So again, he couldn't achieve this in the first season, Luis Enrique, with the player that he had. He decided to take probably the best player that we have known in this planet out, and then became successful with his ideas with young players. But now my question to you is that, maybe it would be wrong, but if I ask you to give me one coach that had the most impact on you in your career.
Cool. It would probably, obviously, I'd say Alex Ferguson. Just from, again, authentic.
And he's the first coach you had as a pro.
First, I had a couple beforehand.
Okay.
But yeah, first big, very big name.
That's it. So,
world-class coach.
That's it. So I'm thinking those young guys from Paris, if you take, for example, Désiré Doué, arrive in Paris, do this season, treble, he got his first called up for France under him, you will give him everything to this coach, because the first one is the first one, So for me, I think Pep had a very big impact on how I see the game now. But you ask me, is he the one? Yeah. Yes, he is the one, but the one is really Arsène Wenger. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think when you build a team and you have young players who haven't achieved anything, and you manage to kind of show them, next to me, you're going to become a superstar. Next to me, you're going to win trophies. Then you've won, So the more player you can have within the dressing room that share that feeling of being with you and being lucky to be trained by you, you've won. When Yaya Touré, when Pep arrived at City and Yaya Touré is Yaya Touré, I'm not saying it's impossible to make him do what you want him to do, but he's Yaya Touré. He's built the club before you arrived, and now it's a case of work with me. As a coach, the coach needs to work with him as much as the player needs to work with you. When he's a young player, it's like, I'm the coach, and with me, you're going to become a superstar. I'm going to follow you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I'm not saying it's easier, but...
It's about balance.
Yeah,
it's always about balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can we ask you about rewinding the clock a little bit here? And you have won 3 Premier Leagues.
Yep.
You've won 2 League Cups.
Yep.
But you could have won a League Cup with Arsenal. But this man was on the other team on that day, and I want to rewind the clock and take you back, because we were doing the research, weren't we, looking at team lineups, and was Gael playing? And you said yes, he was. So
surely this will be one of the finals that you wouldn't have believed you would have lost beforehand, right? So we're talking about the Arsenal 2011. It was Carling Cup back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was,
against Birmingham City.
Mm-hmm.
2-1 it was in the end, wasn't it? What are your recollections of that day?
It's funny because now when I wouldn't say that we probably thought that we were going to win it, but I think that's a good moment, because I think that team, I remember when I signed for City, Roberto Mancini asked me, Gael, so I was putting my boots on before a training session, and he said, Gael, what Arsenal are doing? And I was like, what do you mean, boss? He said, but why are they allowing all you guys to go? He said, because you are 2 players short of dominating the next decades. And he said, if you could have a Yaya Touré or a Vincent Kompany, no one will stop you. And when he told me this, when you're in the moment, in the routine, you don't really understand what it is. And I think that time, we were a very talented team. We hadn't won anything yet, and we didn't. And I think there's a very thin line between experience and a young players. And for me, the difference is that when you're a young player, you are out there to kind of make a name for yourself and to show people that you are a good player. And I'm not saying it's this for everybody, but you could have within the dressing room a player, if you lose 5-3, who score a hat-trick, who will be happy because he scored a hat-trick. I think that team, Arsenal, Invincible, we knew Thierry was going to be the guy who makes you win the game. We knew that without Gilberto Silva, the team was performing, but less than when he was here. So everybody was playing, again, his position, and there were no ego situation. the aim was to win games and to move forward. I think when you're younger, there's another element to the game, which is either a player wants to sign for a bigger club, want to get a better contract, want to start and being a start 11. And you can only do this when you think when you're young, you can only achieve those things by playing.
Yeah.
So, for example, Bergkamp will arrive one-on-one. We have to score the goal. Henry is here. He will slot the ball for Henry. For example, I just give names like this. Maybe if you're 18 and you're 21, maybe you try your luck and maybe you miss out the opportunity to finish the game 1-0. And I do feel that experience is this. Depending, like you said, you have to have the right balance between players that have already achieved and don't need to prove anything, and players that have so much hunger that you can die with them. When I was young, I could play Saturday, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday again. Because I had the desire to just go and again. And I think that time when we lost the final, I'm not saying it's the reason, but I think when you have such a talented squad with young players, well, you just play and you just play without really thinking. I remember the first time I won the only time I won the title with Arsenal. I remember we are in Highbury and celebrating with the fan, and I can feel a hand on my shoulder, and it's Thierry, and he came and said, take it all in, enjoy it, but knows that it's very special. And in my head I was like, what are you talking about? It's my 10 months in professional football, Invincible, the youngest player to win the Premier League. I'm going to crack it. Fast forward 8 years later and I haven't won anything. But my point is that, when you're young, you think it's going to happen. It's like, you play football, you're getting your money every week. Eventually you will stop. If you haven't prepared, when it stops, it will hurt you. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Gael, you're brilliant. Honestly, you are. You're so good, mate, because I don't think people understand it enough or think about it enough in those terms. It's psychology. The psychology of a young player. They haven't lived that experience. They've got to look after number one first and foremost. There's so much pressure involved. When that 18-year-old goes through one-on-one, he wants to slot it so that later that day on Match of the Day or whatever it is, he's the hero, he's the guy. It's about me. Whereas you've got those old experienced players who've already done that. They've lived that moment already, possibly.
But now I'm a coach. I was with the under 21, and there's two things that I wanna say with jumping on what you just said. Sometimes I'm with the guys, and let's say you have your number 9. He's on 15 goals a season, and he comes close angle 1-on-1 with the keeper. If you slot it to number 10, the goal is open and he scores. The striker tried to take a shot, he misses. So I'm asking the player, was it the right option? No, he wasn't. He should have passed. Okay, 5 minutes later, exactly the same situation. He shoots and he scores. Was it the right situation? Okay, I'll give you a third option. Your striker, 15 goals. If he scores that goal, he wins the golden ball or whatever. He slotted number 10. Number 10 misses. As a coach, you wouldn't go to your striker saying, take your chance. So it's not so much about decision. It's more about execution. Yeah. What's right and what could have been. And I think this is what you're dealing with when you're a coach, when you're a player. There are moments, and it's just about the intention is to be right. With the intention, you have results. If you don't have intention, you will have results, but eventually that would stop.
Was it frustrating for you at Arsenal, because obviously you've joined Invincible, win the league, and then Arsenal have then had this transition where the Emirates was built, and I saw a stat the other day about how much Arsène basically had made the club over, I think it was a 10-year period.
But was that at the cost of foregoing?
It was a net profit he made on transfers. But as a player being in the club, you're top four. But was it a bit frustrating knowing that just from a timing point of view, you could have potentially won more if you were still playing at Highbury?
I don't know if you felt that, Ben, but when you're in the game, there's one. I don't have regrets in my career, but I would say if one, it would say that I never really fully understood or enjoyed the moment, because there's a game every 3 days. So sometimes you win 3-0, I don't know, Birmingham City or away or at home. It's just one game, but it is a big win. You win the Carling Cup, for example. 3 days later, you have another game, which, take you to the title race, and then another 3 days later, you have Champions League. So I never really pause myself to understand what I was achieving, So I think my career was 5% of football, and I was probably the worst of those 5%, So in life, we always chase the best. So I was always frustrated because they were better player than me. But if I had paused and I looked behind, there's 20 teams in each country and 3 divisions that pros that make me one of the very rarer to play at that level.
Yeah.
But I never really fully understood that. So to come back to your question, it's like when you're in that moment, you always feel you're going to do it. Arsenal was my team, and Arsenal was the team I wanted to finish my career. I know it sounds silly now, but at the time it was like, I know next year we're going to do it. I know next year we're going to do it. And then the club, and then the mortgage, and then the stadium, and then the players. And then all of a sudden you realize that you don't win, and it cannot be anything else than you part of the problem, So when you start to feel that the club is shifting to a different direction, we've wanted to bring more British players, rightly so, because if you haven't won, surely you need to change something. And I was part of that team that never won anything. So I wasn't also performing perhaps the way the club was expecting me to perform. So I think the club didn't want me to leave, but they didn't want me to stay at any cost. I wasn't that kind of player. And what you realize is that when you leave and you see something newer and fresher, then there's different way to see the game. Like I said, City opened up my eyes in a way of how to become and to be a professional players, which was totally different again. Like coaches, clubs can show you different way of behaving and still have success. So in the moment, you don't realize that you're not doing it because you feel that you're gonna win the next game, you're gonna win the next month, and you're gonna win next year, and then 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So you really get frustrated when it's time to say we stop. I go to City, and now I look back and I said I didn't want that. I wanted to be successful with Arsenal. I wanted to give for the club. I wanted to give Arsène, the one who gave me my chance, for the colours, because like literally when you've been in a club for 8 years, you live for the club, you breathe the club, and I would have loved that. But then you realize it's time to move on, and when you move on, then my kids were born when I was in Manchester, so you start to develop different emotion towards a different club, and then you realize it's just life.
In fairness, it was a probably justified decision as well, because that first season at Man City is the season where you won the league, but not just in any old fashion. It's the famous one. It's the Aguero 90 whatever minute it was, QPR 3-2 win away, which meant that you won the league above Man United on goal difference. One of the most famous, you like the commentary goes, you'll never see anything like it ever again. It was phenomenal, wasn't it? The QPR, talk me through the QPR game, because you're playing in that game, you're on the pitch.
Yeah.
What's that like? Because you must be aware of what's going on at Man United as well.
Okay, now if we're being honest, that final loss with Arsenal, I don't think we thought that we were going to win it. At City, that game, I think we going into the game thinking it's going to be a walk in the park. Beautiful day. They're fighting for relegation. They've been struggling all year. We've been the last 8 games of the season. We're just destroying people. Everybody's fit at home. There's no way we lose. 1-0, Zabaleta scored. We go half time. We're going to crush them. So we didn't take it lightly, because I don't think we were a team like that. But I think in our head, we were already planning the party, the after party, yeah. So that was, I remember seeing people crying in the stand and everything, So I remember moment of the game, and I remember the second goal when I think it's Traore who's going on the side, and I remember shouting to Joel Escott, man, he's fast, stop him, tell them to foul him because he's fast. And then he wasn't a good crosser of the ball, but obviously that day the cross that he gave was just like perfect cross, 2-1 or 2-1, and I'm like, no, that can't be happening. That can't be. Mancini going crazy and stuff. So that game was like, of course, you haven't won the Champions League, you haven't won the Premier League, you haven't won the World Cup, but the scenario of the game, I don't think you can do better than that. Really, that was just like crazy. And like I said, that year, the first 2 years at City, the dressing room, the atmosphere, the vibe we had, and the togetherness we had within the dressing room were just out of this world. I've never seen anything like it. So, Coaching was great. Player, we had top players like Yaya, like David, but the togetherness we had, I think that's what made us actually champion that year.
So where did you go for party? For the party after?
I think we went everywhere. Everywhere in Manchester. I think we went to Abu Dhabi as well. That was
No way.
Yeah, we went to Abu Dhabi. We met the owner, the Sheikh. That was just crazy, honestly. The Invincible season, I think I was too young to fully understand what we were doing. Obviously, I was really happy, and I was just part of the team. But that season with City was just like, the scenario, the way, the 6-1 at Old Trafford as well, is all within a year. Very special.
When you win
the
the
Why
league,
Always Me won it, yeah?
That's it.
Yeah,
That,
the
again,
Balotelli
when you win the league, so that was the first City title, wasn't it?
Mancini, yeah.
Do the owners, obviously they've won a lot of leagues since then, but do you get a little gift from the owner or anything, or is it bonus led? Or
no, we had bonuses. We went to Abu Dhabi, and then remember he gave us the chill, and we wanted to win more, but they told us, okay guys, you left it so late that we couldn't plan anything for you guys, but next time if we win it with more time, we will plan something amazing for you. So we were all bums, but I remember, it's funny because I remember when we won that trophy, that Premier League and few cup, my wife, one day I came back home and she told me, you're living the dream. And I said, yeah, that honestly it's just crazy. She said, you're loving it, yeah, you think you're big. And I was like, well, we're doing it. And she said, but I'm sorry to kill your dream, but what you guys are doing is nothing to compare what's going to happen in the next few years. Like, she literally told me, what you guys are doing now is amazing, but trust me, in a few years that's going to be like mental. And now when I'm looking, like 4 in a row, 6 out of 7 or 5 out of 6, I'm like, she saw it coming, and I don't even know how I didn't see it coming. But again, I'm coming back to, when you're in a routine, this is your life. So what you're doing is good or is bad, but you can't really project yourself because you have a game in 3 days. But she could see it, and she told me, what you're doing is amazing, but what's coming next is going to be like out of this world. And maybe I was too in the job to realize that. But now when I look back, the way the club is being driven, the way everybody is playing his position, there's no secret formula to be successful. Again, it's consistency, everybody playing his position on the field, of course, but also outside. And when you have competent people, there's no way you can not have success. And when I look back, I often say that, and people are saying, you just, dripping on City. I say, no, I'm not dripping on them. It's just an example of how to run a club. And I think Paris are doing it. Also, Brentford are doing it. It's a club that accept that they're not going to win the Champions League or the Premier League yet. But over the last eight years, I think they went from a squad value of 40 or 50 million to 600 million. So it's an achievement in itself.
Relatively.
Yes, so it just depends. Again, I'm coming back to the environment where you are. And if you're in a team that want to create value with the academy and make money, then as a coach, I will be judged on that. I will not be judged by winning the Premier League. I will be judged on that. Now, if you want a bit more, then we have to discuss with the chairman and the owners, and we plan accordingly to have success, the success you want. But if I'm a team that just got the promotion from Championship, the objective is not to win the league. The objective is to stay within the Premier League, and this is an achievement. So I think this is very simple, and when you have people that understand that and are competent, I think you can go a long way.
Yeah, some really food for thought there, it really is. But when you were saying about being in the moment and not realising when you're in the moment, I was just thinking about when we were talking about the Birmingham Cup final win. So you won the Cup final a couple of times, League Cup final we're talking, at United. But that was a machine, right? So it's on the train, game on, Champions League game in the week. Then when you won it with Blues, it was so different because did you enjoy that moment?
Yeah,
because you got relegated.
But it's the relativity of it. For certain teams, winning a cup is about as good as it gets.
But then with Blues, you win it. If you stay in the league, it would have been a different memory for you.
Yeah, but I still think we brought something to the fans that day that they will never forget. And they don't forget. We've got a Blues fan in there who's just like, it was the best day of his life, honestly. So
was he born?
I think he was born. I think he was there.
He was there, I think.
Yeah, so I agree. It's all just relative. It's relative to what that club is, what is success, basically. A couple players want to talk about how underrated was Edin Dzeko and Olivier Giroud. Because in our eyes, we like to look at nostalgically at footballers. they never really got the praise and love that they deserve, we feel.
But again, you mentioning 2 strikers, I could give you 2 names that are not strikers, Joe Lescott and Gareth Barry.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And every time when I speak about that team of Man City, people, they were doing work that people... I remember I had a big argument with Yaya Toure because I said in an interview, I don't think Yaya Toure would be Yaya Toure without Gareth Barry. So obviously I'm not saying he was going to be a bad player. I'm saying that the work Gareth is doing allow Yaya to shine. And I said, but Yaya, I've never said that you were not a good player. I'm saying that Gareth is doing something that no one can do. But for me, it's like, James Milner today is 30 and he's gonna go past, the most, consistent player. And I think this is, if there's one thing to change in football is a bit this, where we distribute the lights, Of course, the guy who's 0-0 and you score the goal and you win, typically, the Aguero goals, if you look at that game, he has a very poor game, but he's the guy that scored.
Do you know what? You sound like a defender, you do.
Like a goalkeeper.
No, not at all, because obviously he's the one that would score. It's normal. But what I'm saying is that sometime, someone like Joe Lescott, you wouldn't talk about him, but the communication he had within the back four and the midfield line was just phenomenal. But people don't see that, people don't hear that. And I'm not surprised that, he became, European champion with the under-21 of England. Not just him, but he brings that, there's a calmness, there's something about the guy. Same for Gareth Barry. So, of course, if we talk about Dzeko and Giroud, yeah, of course, they've been underrated. But again, you don't play for teams like that if you are not the top players. And Edin, if you look at that season, the important goals during the season, he was the one scoring.
Yeah, he was there from.
And again, you have some players that, I'm deflecting from the subject, but you have some players that can perform and excel in a lower league club because there's not a structure and you are more free to do whatever you want. You don't have to think about the phases of the game, transition, offense to defense, defense to offense. You're just free to play. And as soon as you arrive in a place like CD, for example, where you have to think, you have to mind not losing the ball, then maybe you don't play the same football. And we've seen the example with Jack Grealish today. I'm not saying he's going to have an amazing season at Everton or he's going to have an amazing season, but you can see that the environment where you are help you perform. And I think, someone like Dzeko, every time he started the game, for example, he wasn't that obvious that he should be a starter. When Aguero, there were no question about it. So that's the view of the manager. And if you look back and you take the patterns of each players within, their own career, there are patterns that always, comes back. And Edin is someone that scores goals no matter where. But at that time at City, someone was perhaps performing better than him, was more suited to the game. But it doesn't mean he's not a great player.
With that Man City team, so straight away you pulled me up and you said, no, Julian Lescott, Gareth Barry. It sounds to me, or even if you look at the team, there are a lot of unsung heroes in that team. The people with characters, real leaders, real winners, professionals, James Milners, Joe Hart even, people like that who, because you need those guys in the dressing room, don't you? Like the glue guys who always just keep it ticking along nicely.
And but it's like everything, you want a story, so you want names, you want something that is bankable. And I cannot be bankable. I can be great, but I'm not bankable. Aguero is probably bankable. That's an example. Player A is bankable, but he's a terrible human being. Player B is a top guy, but he's not bankable. The light will go to number 8 because number 8 brings money. Number 8 brings, and you can write stories about him, If you really look what Mario Balotelli did in his career, with the potential he had, every coaches that coached him are going to tell you he was probably one of the best players they ever coached. And yet, we know about Mario Balotelli more about the outside football than what he did on the field, if we're being honest. Why this much, importance toward the game that needs performance? Just because he's bankable, for whatever reason it is, But when you bank a ball, you bank a ball. And there were a lot of players that were probably less important towards the outside world, but within the dressing room, they were, it's just crazy what they did at that time.
Maybe you should have set up some fireworks in the changing room or something, and then
Well, I would say that the story is better when you burn out your house rather than the guy who's taking the kids to school at 8 o'clock and picking them up at 4.
You're too sensible, Gael.
No, but it's true, and you have to live with it. But also those players are the special player that will make you win the bug. So
It takes all sorts, I think is the word. It takes all sorts.
Yeah,
right?
brilliant.
Who's the favourite goalie you've played with in your career?
without a question, Joe Hart.
Yeah. Go on, Hart.
Without a question, without a doubt. But again, it just shows you that you have a coach that comes with his ideas. He's gonna die with his ideas or have success. But without a shadow of a doubt, in my career, is the best I played with.
Oh,
like
that, mate.
100%.
That's phenomenal. It's a great way to finish the podcast, isn't it? A bit of goalie love. We like a bit of goalie love, Gael. Right, what have we got, mate? Quick fires, quickly.
Yep.
Right then, mate. Are you into many other sports?
I'm big on paddle now.
Paddle?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's
I
cool.
love it, yeah.
Okay, but if you had a bucket list, one event, main event, final of some description, what sporting event would you go and watch?
Yeah, probably Wimbledon final.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Racket sports. You're into
Yeah,
racket,
yeah,
aren't you? Is there a song that you know every word to?
A song that you wouldn't know is
That
from
you-
the French Caribbean.
Okay, yeah.
You wouldn't know.
But you know every word. And you can back yourself on this, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, cool,
definitely.
Okay, cool. Who's the cleverest player you've played with? Smartest?
Well, on the field or
Yeah,
outside the field?
In your team, one of your teammates.
But as in football intelligence.
Yes. No. Just
Brain.
brains.
I think Milner is up there.
Yeah, I thought you'd say that.
Milner is up there, and I think Vinny is up there, even though he was pushing it too much, coming with the little bags and
Yeah.
books and stuff like that. So I don't know if he's pushing it too much, but I think he's up there.
I think it's
also.
unfair, Vinny, because his head's so big, right?
He can store information. Information storer. Wow.
He's got a hard drive in there.
You got a cloud system up there.
Fastest player you played with?
Yeah, I think Walcott. Yeah, Theo.
Yeah.
Oh,
Theo,
yeah,
but
good shout.
Cherry obviously.
Yeah.
Cherry obviously, but yeah, Cherry and Theo.
And final question, who's the one player that you enjoyed playing the most with in your career? Which team, mate?
Wow, I would probably say David Silva. I would say I could have said, Nasri, Pires, Bergkamp, all of them, but David was special. He was playing on the left-hand side also. And he's one of those maverick players that are actually playing for the team. So I'm not saying the other are not playing for the team, because if they make you win, obviously they're playing for the team. But he was playing for the team.
A maverick team player.
That's the definition of David Silva. Yeah.
Genius.
Maybe he was a little bit lazy on the defensive duties sometimes.
Let him off with that.
Yeah, I would let him off. But I love his, he was very elegant, quiet, but never shy, to ask the ball. Yeah, David Silva.
That's
is
what
probably
Gareth
my
Barry's
guy.
there for, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But that's true. Yeah, we had an argument like that with Roberto Mancini because, basically he was saying this. He was saying, when we're playing, Millie, James Milner and Gareth, you move across. So basically you move across on the left side so David can stay wherever he wanted. Come on, boss, you can't say that.
Brilliant.
Gael, thank you so much. That was phenomenal, mate. And your English, he said it before the show that his English ain't great. Oh my gosh.
You said ish earlier on. Something
no.
ish. I was like, that's
incredible.
proper
Thank you,
English.
guys. Thank you
so
for
much.
Thank you.
All the best,
Up
mate.
the
Thank you, guys.
Fozcast.
Up the Fozcast.
Thanks everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed the latest episode of the Fozcast. Don't forget to give us a follow on Spotify. Up the Fozcast.